and welcome to the Talkonomics podcast. I'm here with Devon Krantz. Welcome. I'm
Thank
really
you so
happy
much.
to have you over.
Thanks,
So,
yeah, it's great to be here.
can you introduce yourself? Tell me what you do.
Sure, so my name is Devon, as you mentioned, and I'm the COO of a company called Molecule. And what Molecule is doing is we're creating a market-based platform for price finding, funding, and discovery of pharmaceutical IP. So that's kind of what we're working on. But prior to that, I also have founded a blockchain software development company in 2016, and we work on building POCs, MVPs, and a little bit of consulting and training for corporate entities. So that's the other side of things.
So, how did you get into this space and what were you doing before that?
Sure. So before my previous life, I actually worked at a bank as a business analyst, and they sent me on a Bitcoin training course back in 2015.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and I was really interested in the tech. There was very little information around and available at the time. So my co-founder and I just started getting into a really deep research mode, kind of looking at what was around, what was happening with Bitcoin. And then we actually started doing training and consulting through that to corporate entities like the bank that I used to work at, and teaching them what they could do with the technology. And through that, kind of after the training and consulting, we realized that the technology in South Africa, where it was actually where we founded it, wouldn't develop further unless we actually started growing the community from the grassroots level up. So actually training the community what the technology was, how they could use it, and then leverage the power of blockchain to actually build their own instances of whatever they wanted to build with it.
Okay, makes sense. So, when you discovered the Bitcoin, you got really interested to dig deeper. So, what exactly interested you in it? Like, what was there in the tech or in the currency itself? What actually attracted you to dig deeper and get more knowledge?
I think what interested me initially was that it was something that had never been done before that could inherently change the way that systems have worked in the past. And straight after I got involved or interested in Bitcoin, I actually got more interested in Ethereum and its possibilities. So actually, more recently, I've been focusing my attention more on the Ethereum blockchain than on Bitcoin.
Okay, makes sense. So. You mentioned communities, and I'm very passionate about communities, and I think it's a very important element, especially in the blockchain space, because of the way it's structured. So, what do you think is the role of the communities for blockchain projects?
I think the role of community, even the blockchain community holistically, is the most important for its actual adoption worldwide. Because if people, like I mentioned in the beginning, if people don't understand it, if they don't accept it, it's never going to grow and it's never going to become more widely used. Which is kind of why we've focused most of our attention on actually building the community, not towards any specific project, but actually providing free access to resources, knowledge, meetups, and building it from that grassroots level upwards. So we've actually been developing communities now throughout 15 different countries in Africa, and the growth there has been amazing to see. The uptake through countries like Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, everywhere that kind of has a thriving community that is interested in blockchain tech has really picked it up well and is eager to learn more and develop further.
Okay, interesting. So, growing the community is a one type of craft. Keeping them interested and nurturing it and having them stick around is a completely different and probably much harder task. So how are you managing that side of the story?
It's definitely a careful balance, I think, between welcoming newcomers to the space and providing resources on a beginner's level, and then maintaining the people that may been in the community for a much longer time and want to actually discuss deeper topics. So we often have to have a play up with different interest groups having different events that target different levels of experience, and then also bringing them together through other events maybe that talk about use cases or projects in the space that everyone can kind of relate to and discuss together as a community, because that's the only way that I think to maintain that level of interest. And I guess it also relates to the different platforms that you use and the level, or the city as a whole, like what level they're at and where their interests lie. Also in subject matter, from the ICO and financial and trading side of things all the way through to the development and token engineering side of things. It's a very different group of people, I think, that you need to try and handle the interests of.
Okay, makes sense. So communities online versus offline and the balance between the two, if you have to put the importance towards one or the other, or you think both are equally important?
I think both are important, but I'm definitely noticing an upward trend in online communities in the past few years. So we've, for the past 3 years, been building physical communities, so with our meetups on meetup.com across the globe. But what we've noticed as well, since we started maybe 3 years ago when the hype was up with the prices, and then the more recent slowdown from the ICO craze into the people that are actually developing on the systems, is that our attendance figures on meetup.com across all of our meetups actually have decreased a little bit, but we are seeing an uptake now in the online events that we run. So we also run a number of online workshops, which has increased.
Yeah, the format has slightly shifted in that case. Yeah, I see. So you mentioned the ICO hype. Obviously, everyone was super excited about the sphere. Everyone wanted to get into it. Everyone was very positive about the future. These days, the vibe is slightly different, and you get, as you mentioned, less people around. But do you think that the type of people has changed as well?
I think initially I was attracted to the blockchain community as a whole because it was full of this fringe edge of community that were so passionate and driven to learn more about the tech that they really wanted to make a positive impact on the world. Then it went through kind of a phase where it was just the ICO craze and people maybe got into the tech for the wrong reasons, and it didn't last very long, as we all saw. But I feel now that the community, I've heard a couple of people say it today, the cowboy era is over. So there's definitely more of a focus, I guess, again, on real projects and real community initiatives and people actually wanting to make a difference again. So it is kind of averaging itself out a little bit more.
Okay, makes sense. So you mentioned that the communities are very important, especially for mass adoption. So how do you see the role of those communities for mass adoption? Is it advocacy? Is it just spreading the word? Or how do you see, what can they do actually in order to accelerate the process?
I think that ultimately the community are our users. It's the one that we're designing all of this for. We're designing it so that the community will benefit. Bitcoin has a massive community around it because it helped change their lives in a positive way. It enables them to do things that they've never been able to do before, and it adds value. So the communities that we develop around blockchain projects need to feel the value that they are getting from these projects in order to support them. And I think without having this level of support, and you personally won't get that support unless you're providing value, because I'm not entirely sure why the community would.
Yeah. Do you think that how big and especially how healthy the community is for a project is indication of its success? Or it's just part of it?
No, I think it's difficult to say as well, because there are some projects that I think have massive communities where I personally don't agree with the projects, but it's also dependent on what those particular communities or users are looking to get out of the projects that they're associated with.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. So, in your experience, what you started as someone who became part of a community, and then you started building communities in Africa and other places. So, when you're looking at the healthy communities out there, what is it in there that will kind of that makes the community strong, that makes it healthy? Because very often some people will try to manipulate the existing communities, kind of hijacking it somehow for their own hidden agenda and stuff like that. So what is it there to protect and kind of keep it healthy without any interference or any influence that may be misconsumed?
I think that the reason that communities stay together or that they work together is because they're all working together towards a common goal or an outcome. And often the communities that are then working towards this common goal share share the same values that they kind of want to get out of their community. The moment that you start feeling corrupted in the values of the community, you're going to get community members that basically split or hard for the community and start doing something else or move to a different area of the blockchain space. I mean, at the moment, there's so many different options for community members to take different routes depending on what they believe in. So I think it's very closely tied to their values. But I also think another big part of it is activity and value that they get out of it. So I mean, if like the Ethereum community, they have meetups all over the place. They have the ETH Global Hackathons, which are amazing for encouraging and creating community spirits and creating that sense of togetherness and helping one another and providing resources. So that's I guess the other side of it.
Yeah, very interesting. So it's very interesting to look at the trends of how you mentioned Ethereum. Ethereum's community is very, very strong, and it's very vibrant. And I think the communities are usually very strong when the community members talk to each other and interact within themselves without even the founder or the organizer being there, right? So it's becoming a healthy ecosystem where people engage together. So
sorry, just to cut you off. There's a really interesting paper out somewhere about headless organizations, or headless marketing, which kind of like talks exactly about that, where it's not led by one specific marketing agency or marketing department or even the founder, but the community kind of self-organizes and self-actualizes and actually helps promote and spread the word. And I do believe that that's going to be a big topic coming up in the future.
Yeah, so. which later on brings this snowball effect of spreading it even faster.
Yeah, exactly.
What about, let's say, theoretically take into account, let's say it's just one blockchain project, an idea, they're just starting out, they need to attract and grow their community from scratch. What are the things or what are the steps to take into account?
Wow. How we grew our community was just through, I guess, and I know you've also had experience with honesty and transparency, but being genuine and authentic in your actions as well initially. So the reason that that I guess any project is starting out, the reason that you're attracting these customers has to be genuine. You can't be trying to trick them or scam them, because that's going to come to light, I think, a lot faster these days than it would have in the past.
Now they have already, I think building trust is harder now because the trust has been already misused in the past.
People are a lot more cautious now, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are your plans for the future?
Well, plans for the future we are actually, so with Molecule, I mentioned in the beginning, we're launching our alpha in a few weeks' time.
Nice.
So we're launching a crowdfunding type mechanism for scientific research projects. Really excited for that to launch. It's Catalyst, a Molecule Catalyst. So we're going to try and launch that soon, and then basically keep developing the Molecule protocol platform for the next few years. Keep on pushing the development of that, see how far we can get with fractionalizing IP ownerships in pharmaceutical industry. And we want to keep building up the community there. So I mean, we've been really involved in, I mentioned community a lot, but growing the blockchain and pharma space is being quite a challenge because it's a very different industry, I guess, to the crypto and the blockchain community. It's a lot more reserved, it's a lot bigger, it's a lot more corporate.
Yeah, and I presume much more regulated.
Very regulated as well. So we're dealing with a lot of different complexities. But I think as the knowledge and the normalization of blockchain tech in the science and pharma spaces becomes more of a common thing, it'll start coming together, I think. And we've definitely seen a pickup of it already. We were just at the Blockchain for Science conference in Berlin earlier this week, and it's incredible to kind of see the progress in the scientific field using this tech and the community that's growing out of that as well.
It's very nice. So I wish you lots of success with your launch.
Thank you so much.
All the best, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you too.
Thanks a lot.